Israel has a genocidal intent against the Palestinians in Gaza.
The charge of genocide leveled against Israel is not only false, it's outrageous.
The highest court of the United Nations has ruled that Israel must take all measures to prevent genocidal acts in Gaza
and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide.
But Israel has been accused of allowing controversial statements to continue. BBC News Arabic has investigated statements by Israeli leaders, soldiers, and on the internet. We ask, what action has Israel taken since the ruling at the International Court of Justice? Since Hamas's attack on Israel in October 2023 and Israel's subsequent military campaign in Gaza, both sides have used inflammatory language. Some Hamas officials have made speeches about repeating the acts, and Hamas leaders have been accused of war crimes. But because Hamas is not a state, it cannot be taken to the ICJ. Israel, however, can be taken to the ICJ. It has signed the Genocide Convention, and incitement to genocide is also punishable under Israeli national law. But what is considered a genocidal act? The UN defines genocide as acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. The convention outlines 5 punishable acts, one of which is the direct and public incitement or call to action to commit genocide.
אנחנו מטפלים בעזה רק במחבלים. מי שקיבל כדור כנראה מגיע לו. מי שחוסל בעזה, אנחנו הורגים מחבלים. מי שבא לרצוח ילדים.
The deputy speaker, a member of the Prime Minister's Likud party, made these comments weeks after the ICJ's order. He'd previously called to burn Gaza in a post on X. He said he deleted it, following a request from the platform, but he didn't apologize. And controversial comments have been made since the ruling by those in Israel's government. This call by Israel's National Security Minister for Palestinians to leave Gaza voluntarily, a population of more than 2 million, was made just 2 days after the ICJ ruling. Comments calling for the expulsion of Palestinians from Gaza have been made by soldiers on the ground. Since October 7th, there have been videos by IDF soldiers mocking and celebrating the destruction of Gaza. The IDF told the BBC that it handles videos posted by soldiers with command and disciplinary measures, and that, in some of the examined cases, it is concluded that the expression or behavior of the soldiers in the footage is inappropriate.
We consider the calling to displacement of the Gaza population as part of the ethnic cleansing that is ongoing in Gaza. That is part of the genocide.
Certain statements, let's say by Itamar Ben-Gvir and others, I'm definitely not going to defend such statements, but they do not rise to the level of genocide, certainly.
UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, however, says,
we can see that it's impossible to return Gaza to what it was because 70% of it has been destroyed, because over 33,000 people have been killed, 14,000 of whom are children. So the incitement against the people of Gaza has translated, in fact, into concrete actions. So there is a direct link. It cannot be missed.
Francesca Albanese's criticism of Israeli policies in Gaza have been strongly contested, among others by Israel and its ally, the United States.
In Gaza.
This link between what politicians say and what's echoed by soldiers was a core part of South Africa's case during the ICJ hearing in January. They claimed
Israel's political leaders, military commanders, and persons holding official positions have systematically and in explicit terms declared their genocidal intent. And these statements are then repeated by soldiers on the ground in Gaza.
And gave this example.
זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק, נצטווינו. אנו זוכרים ואנו נלחמים.
This speech was addressing soldiers before the ground offensive in Gaza. Amalek comes from a biblical story where Israelites are ambushed by the Amalek people and God commands their destruction, women and children included. The war against Amalek is described as a mitzvah war in Jewish text. It is a war commanded by God and includes defending Jewish life, under which it is considered obligatory to fight.
I think Netanyahu's reference to Amalek in the modern context of this war was highly problematic. It was using a term that's vague and could be understood in different ways in order to rally support, especially among the religious camp.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's office says he was talking about Hamas in connection to Amalek and not Palestinian civilians. To understand the reach of the term Amalek, the BBC investigated online mentions since the start of the war, filtering those to ones associated with Gaza war, and narrowing that down further to mentions just in Hebrew. We collected over 3,600 mentions and found they reached a total of 6 million users. Mentions peaked around the time of Mr. Netanyahu's speech, and again at the beginning of December when this video went viral. This religious language and ideology has become part of the messaging within Israel, at least in some communities. It was also expressed at an annual conference that took place for all Zionist yeshivas, Jewish religious schools in Israel. Rabbi Eliyahu Mali gives a lecture which he describes as being about the treatment of civilians in Gaza. The following clip went viral and has been watched over 1 million times. We have added our own verified translations.
כשאנחנו נלחמים מלחמת מצווה, במקרה הזה בעזה, על פי עיקר הדין, לא תחי כל נשמה. הסברה בזה מאוד ברורה, ולא תהרוג אותם, הם יהרגו אותך.
One description of a mitzvah war, which Rabbi Mali discusses in his lecture, includes a commandment that states, "Do not allow a soul to live." We contacted Rabbi Eliyahu Mali about his lecture. His legal representative replied, saying the rabbi's lecture has been grossly misrepresented, and that he made it very clear that anyone following the biblical commandment today would be causing the army and the nation extreme harm. The rabbi said that it is forbidden to harm the civilian population from a child to an old man. We managed to track down the full 47-minute lecture, and Rabbi Mali does conclude the following.
למרות שעיקר הדין הוא לא תחי כל נשמה, פסק ההלכה ברור בלי פקפוק שצריך לנהוג לפי הפקודות. אז עלינו לדעת שאם אנחנו רוצים לעשות רצון השם, והפקודות אומרות ככה, אנחנו צריכים לעשות רצון השם והפקודות, ולא להרגיש אשמים או לא מוסריים.
However, earlier in the lecture he discusses the position of Jewish texts in relation to civilian populations and says this.
באמת, לדעתי יש הבדל בין אוכלוסייה אזרחית במקומות אחרים לאוכלוסייה אזרחית בעזה. לא כל אנגלית שווים. בעזה, על פי כל הערכות של גורמי הביטחון, 95% עד 98% הם רוצים בהשמדתנו. אותו דבר. אותו דבר. מה שנקרא למות עם דמות זה גם חיה. כי אם אתה משאיר אותו, כאילו אתה לא יכול להתחכם עם התורה. כשהתורה אומרת, לא תחי כל נשמה, לא תחי כל נשמה.
Itai Mak, a lawyer from the Israeli group Tag Meir that campaigns against racism and discrimination, asked the police to investigate Rabbi Mali on suspicion of incitement to commit genocide, violence, and terrorism. He says he's waiting to hear if that will happen. Two days before the court hearing in January, Israel's Attorney General said any statements calling for intentional harm to civilians contradict the policy of the State of Israel and may amount to a criminal offense, including the offense of incitement. Currently, several such cases are being examined by Israeli law enforcement authorities. And while no report has been made public, the ICJ confirmed it received the report it requested from Israel on what action it's taken. The BBC has not been able to verify whether any criminal investigations have been opened to determine if statements could be inciting genocide.
Whether there are investigations, of course, depends on whether, in their view, any arguable incitement to genocide has happened. Hamas hides behind civilians, and inevitably, some of those civilians have regrettably and tragically been harmed.
The BBC contacted Israel's state attorney, police commissioner, and Ministry of Justice for comment. Only the Ministry of Justice replied, saying they have to balance the constitutional right to freedom of speech while safeguarding against harmful incitement. The ICJ issued the interim order because a final verdict will take years. And while there's no end in sight to this deadly and long-standing conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, inflammatory language from both sides continues. It's unclear what Gaza will look like or how it will be governed once a final ruling is eventually issued.